I always believed a wedding day would feel like standing in warm morning light. I pictured gentle brightness touching every corner of my life, washing away old fears and filling me with hope. On my own wedding day in Savannah, Georgia, that feeling almost became real. I stood inside the white two-story bridal house at the venue, the one with tall windows and soft blue curtains, and I watched the sunlight settle on my dress. The lace glowed as if it had its own secret light. For a moment, I let myself breathe in the quiet. The scent of roses drifted through the open windows. Everything looked perfect, almost too perfect for a girl who grew up learning how to make herself smaller, so others could feel bigger. My name is Claire Hensley, and for most of my life, I carried the role of the responsible daughter in my family. My mother, Linda, liked to say that I was the strong one, but what she meant was that I was the one who gave without asking for anything back. My younger sister Brooke received all the softness in our house. She was praised for simply existing, while I had to earn every kind word. If I bought something with my own money, my mother treated it like community property. If I saved for something important, Brooke always seemed to need it more. I learned early how to give quietly. I learned the art of stepping aside. I learned to protect my peace by staying silent. This wedding was supposed to be the beginning of something new. Daniel, the man I was about to marry, never treated me as an extra set of hands. From the moment I met him, he spoke to me like my thoughts mattered. He had a way of listening that made me feel seen. His parents loved me, too. They were the kind of people who brought warmth wherever they went. 3 months before the wedding, they surprised me with a beautiful silver car. I remember the way Daniel's mother placed the envelope with the title in my hand. She told me it was their welcome gift, a way to say I was fully part of the family. The title had my name on it, and only my name. I cried when I saw that. It was the first time anyone gave me something without expecting a piece of it back. As the morning moved closer to the ceremony, my bridesmaids helped with the finishing touches. They pinned soft curls in my hair and smoothed the lace on my dress. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman trying to believe she deserved this day. My heart kept whispering that something might go wrong. Old habits made it hard to trust happiness. Still, I pressed my palm against my stomach and told myself to enjoy the moment. The ceremony took place under tall oak trees behind the house. The branches stretched out like long arms, and the string lights woven through them glowed like tiny stars. Guests filled the wooden chairs, and the soft music made everything feel like a dream. When I walked down the aisle, I saw Daniel waiting for me with a smile that reached his eyes. My steps felt light. My heart felt steady. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. We exchanged vows and rings, and I felt something warm settle inside me. It was hope. It was a new beginning. The guests clapped when we kissed. Daniel squeezed my hand and whispered that everything was perfect. In that moment, I almost believed that the past had finally loosened its grip on me. But the world does not let go of old stories so easily. After the ceremony, during the reception in the garden, the first sign of trouble appeared. While the guests gathered near the table set with candles and white flowers, I noticed my mother and Brooke standing a little apart from everyone. Their smiles looked normal on the surface, but I could tell something was moving beneath them. They leaned close to each other, whispering like they were planning something. I watched them for a few seconds. They did not know I was looking. They never imagined I would expect anything from them except more taking. The silver car was parked near the entrance of the venue. It shone under soft lights like a piece of the night sky polished clean. I saw Brooke glance at it more than once. I saw my mother nod at her in a way that made my stomach tighten. They had the same expression they used to have when they spotted something of mine they planned to claim. I did not feel the old panic this time. Instead, I felt a steady calm, almost like the quiet before a storm. My silence was no longer a sign of fear. It was a sign of preparation. What they did not know was that I had already protected myself. A week before the wedding, I had used $800 from my savings to meet with a lawyer downtown. He helped me prepare a legal declaration that protected every gift given to me at the wedding. The silver car was included. The title was under my name. Every detail was written clearly and signed with the proper witnesses. I had kept the document in a small sealed envelope inside my purse all morning. I felt that envelope beside me like a shield. As the music played and the guests smiled and danced, I watched my mother and sister with a clarity I had never felt before. For years, they believed I would always bend. They believed I would stay quiet and carry their choices like heavy bags. But this day was not only about joining my life with Daniel. It was also about ending a pattern that had shaped my entire world. They did not know I heard their secret plans. They did not know I had found my voice long before the ceremony began. And they certainly did not know that this time, I would not let them take anything from me. I stood in the lights of my own wedding, surrounded by people who loved me, and I felt something powerful rise inside me. This time, I had come prepared. The moment that changed everything began so quietly that no one around us even looked up. The band played a soft, dreamy melody while guests moved around the garden carrying small plates of appetizers. I had just finished talking with two of Daniel's co-workers when I felt the familiar presence of my mother behind me. She always approached with a certain confidence, like she believed every space belonged to her. Brooke stepped beside her, adjusting her long hair with a practiced flick of her fingers, already wearing that smile she used when she expected something to go her way. My mother leaned close enough for her perfume to wrap around me. It was the same sharp floral scent she wore for every big moment, the same one she sprayed on before every school ceremony, every holiday photo, every time she wanted the world to praise her. Her voice dropped so quietly that only I could hear her. She told me that she and Brooke would be taking the silver car home after the reception. She said it like the decision had already been made. She explained that Brooke needed it for her new photography business, because appearances mattered. My mother spoke gently, as if she were explaining something simple to a child. Brooke laughed in the soft way she always used when she wanted to make herself sound innocent. She told me that since I was married now, I would not need the car. She said I would be too busy settling into a married home, as though that made her entitled to what was mine. She smiled with perfect confidence, like she believed this was natural and fair. From the outside, anyone watching us would have seen three women sharing polite wedding smiles. No one would have guessed that my mother had just decided to take something precious that did not belong to her. No one would have guessed that Brooke expected her usual reward just for living her life without effort. And no one would have guessed that I already knew they were planning something long before they spoke a single word. Inside my chest, something shifted with a soft and final click. I did not feel the old fear that used to rise whenever they demanded things from me. I did not feel anger either. What settled inside me was something far steadier. It was the calm of a person who had finally learned that peace cannot survive when silence is used as a shield. It was the calm of someone who had prepared for this exact moment. They thought I would accept their decision like I always had. They thought my quietness meant agreement. What they did not know was that I had already taken steps to protect myself because I had grown tired of watching my own life shrink every time they wanted more. A week before the wedding, I sat in a small law office in downtown Savannah with an envelope of savings in my purse. I had worked many late hours in the past 6 months, saving $200 here, $100 there, until I had enough to cover the lawyer's fee. I used $800 to draft a legal document that stated every gift given to me at the wedding belonged solely to me. The document included a clear line about anything titled in my name, especially the silver car. The lawyer told me I was wise to think ahead. I told him I did not want to lose anything else in my life to the same pattern I had lived through for years. He notarized the papers, placed them in a thick envelope, and handed them to me with a quiet smile. I kept that envelope closed from that moment on. On the morning of my wedding, I carried it in my purse like a silent promise. It felt like armor. It felt like a small part of my voice written on official paper. So when my mother whispered her plan, I simply nodded. She mistook my calm for surrender because that was what she expected from me. Brooke gave me the same smug look she always wore when she believed she had won something she did not earn. They walked away with their heads high, certain that I would not resist. They never turned back. They walked with the confidence of people who believed history could not change. What they did not see was Daniel watching from across the reception floor. He had stopped mid-conversation with one of his cousins, his eyes fixed on me. He knew every quiet story from my childhood. He knew how many times I had been pushed aside or overlooked. He saw the tension in my shoulders and the small shift in my expression. Without hesitating, he crossed the room and reached for my hand. His fingers wrapped around mine with warmth that steadied me. He asked gently if I was all right. His voice held the kind of concern that comes from love, not ownership. I told him I was fine, and I meant it. I had never felt more prepared for anything in my life. Still, I did not tell him what my mother and Brooke said, not yet. I wanted the truth to appear at the right moment. I wanted the moment to show itself clearly, without my voice needing to push or explain. He studied my face for a few seconds. He knew I was holding something inside, but he respected my choice to wait. He squeezed my hand once before stepping back, staying close enough that I felt his presence behind me like a protective shadow. The music continued, soft and elegant. The candles flickered on the tables. Guests laughed and clinked glasses. Yet beneath all that joy, a new current began to hum in the air. Something was coming. Something they believed they controlled. Something they thought they could take with confidence. But they had no idea how much the world had already changed. The moment I had waited for would arrive soon. And I was ready. The moment began long before anyone realized something was shifting. The sun had already started to sink behind the tall oak trees, and the garden lights glowed like warm pearls above the reception tables. Guests were finishing their meals, laughing softly, and lifting their glasses to the soft music that drifted through the air. I remember sitting beside Daniel, finally letting myself relax. For a few minutes, I enjoyed the feeling of being surrounded by people who truly cared about us. I thought the day had reached its peaceful end. Then I saw my mother stand up from her table. She walked toward the stage, with the microphone waiting at the edge. Her dress shimmered under the lights, and she moved with the confidence of someone who believed she owned the room. Brooke walked a few steps behind her, touching her hair in the same nervous habit she always had when she expected praise. My mother turned to the crowd with a bright smile that fooled so many people for so many years. The guests clapped politely, still unaware of what was coming. I felt Daniel glance at me. I could sense the question in his eyes. I simply placed my hand on his arm. I already knew what my mother was about to do. I'd spent my whole life watching her turn my achievements into family property. I recognized the way she held the microphone with a proud tilt. She thanked everyone for coming. She complimented the decorations, the food, the band, everything that made the evening look perfect. People nodded and smiled. Daniel's parents looked touched by her words. Then her eyes drifted toward the venue's entrance, where the silver car sat under a hanging lantern, glowing softly in the night. She pointed at it with a graceful gesture. She told the guests that Daniel's parents had given the car as a generous gift for the family. She added that since Brooke was starting a new photography business, she would be taking it home to help her look successful. She spoke as if the plan had been arranged, with my full blessing. She announced it with the confidence of someone who believed she could rewrite the truth whenever it suited her. A wave of heat moved through my chest. I heard a few murmurs of confusion from the tables around me. Daniel's mother stared at my mother as though she had misheard her. Daniel's father sat straighter in his chair, his expression tightening. I could feel the shift in the air, a slow unraveling of the calm that had settled over the evening. I stood up carefully. Not rushed, not angry. I felt a quiet strength rise through me, the kind that comes from finally choosing yourself. My silence had never been weakness. It had been years of survival. Now it was something sharper and clearer. Preparation. As I walked across the garden toward the stage, the guests turned to watch. The candlelight flickered across their surprised faces. My dress brushed gently against the grass. I reached into my purse and felt the smooth envelope waiting for me. The same envelope that held the document I had signed in that small downtown law office. The same document that said every gift given to me belonged solely to me. When I stepped onto the stage, my mother's smile did not fade right away. It faltered only a little, just enough for me to see the first tiny crack beneath her confident mask. Brooke looked at me with a puzzled frown, trying to read my expression. I took the microphone from my mother with steady hands. I thanked the guests for celebrating with us. I smiled at Daniel's parents. Then I turned to my mother and my sister. The entire garden seemed to hold its breath. I lifted the envelope for everyone to see. I explained that I had created a legal declaration a week before the wedding. The document stated that every wedding gift given to me was protected in my name alone. I told them the silver car was included and that the title carried only my name. I opened the envelope and read the summary in a clear and calm voice. My mother's expression changed first. Her smile froze. Then it broke. I watched it melt away like thin ice under warm water. Brooke's eyes widened until they looked almost glassy. The guests around them gasped quietly. Daniel stood behind me now, close enough that I could feel the comfort of his presence. I looked directly at my mother and sister. I told them this moment was not about a car. I said it was about years of taking without asking. I explained that this pattern had followed me from childhood to adulthood, shaping every part of my life. I said the words gently, not out of anger, but out of truth. I wanted the room to understand without the bitterness that had lived inside me for so long. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Brooke took a step back, her face flushed. The guests could see everything clearly now. There was no confusion. There was no place for twisting the truth. Their power slipped away in front of every witness. I placed the envelope on the table near the wedding cake. The soft sound of the paper touching the wood felt final, almost symbolic. I walked back to Daniel, and as soon as he took my hand, the guests began to applaud. Some clapped for the courage. Some clapped for the fairness. Some clapped simply because they had seen the pattern unfold in the smallest of ways throughout the day. My mother sat down slowly, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. Brooke followed her, unable to lift her eyes from the ground. For the first time in my life, I did not feel small in front of them. I felt like someone who had finally stepped into her own voice, her own strength, her own life. And the night continued, brighter than before. When the reception finally quieted and the music faded into soft echoes across the garden, the air around me felt changed. It carried a new kind of stillness, a peaceful kind that I had rarely known. The stars above the savannah sky looked brighter than they had earlier, as if the night itself understood that something inside me had shifted forever. The garden lights cast long and gentle shadows across the grass, and the last few guests hugged us goodbye with warm smiles that held real support. For the first time that entire day, I felt truly light. Daniel and I walked toward the silver car parked near the entrance. The same car that had caused such a storm now sat quietly under a hanging lantern, shining as if it had nothing to do with the chaos earlier. Daniel opened the passenger door for me with a smile that said everything without a single word spoken. His eyes held that quiet reassurance I had come to rely on, the kind that told me he understood the weight of what I had faced and that he stood with me through every part of it. As I sat inside and closed the door, I felt something move inside my chest. It was not fear. It was not sadness. It was a deep, steady release. The moment earlier had not been about a car at all. It had been about ending a long and painful pattern that had shaped my life since childhood. In my mother's house in Atlanta, I had always felt like a visitor in my own story. My choices were questioned. My successes were borrowed. My belongings were treated as shared property. Every time I earned something, someone found a way to claim a piece of it. But not tonight. Tonight, I had chosen myself. Tonight, I had stepped out of that silent obedience that had followed me for years. Tonight, I showed them that I no longer lived inside the old rules they created for me. And as Daniel started the car, the soft hum of the engine sounded like the beginning of a new chapter. The drive from Savannah to Charleston took a few hours, but the miles passed like moments. The road stretched ahead of us in long silver lines under the headlights. The night air drifted through the small crack in the window, cool and calming. Daniel held my hand whenever he could, squeezing gently in quiet reassurance. Neither of us spoke much. There was no need. The silence between us was not heavy. It was peaceful. When we arrived at our new house in Charleston, I felt my breath catch. The two-story home looked even more beautiful at night, with pale brick walls that reflected the moonlight and a small garden filled with rosemary and lavender behind a white gate. I had saved $50,000 over the years to help buy this place. Every shift I worked, every extra hour, every small paycheck I tucked aside. And Daniel's parents helped with the rest as a wedding gift. I had never owned anything that felt so right or so earned. Daniel unlocked the door, and we stepped inside together. The house smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. I walked into the kitchen and gently placed my bouquet on the counter. The quiet space felt warm, almost sacred. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the ring on my finger. I lifted my hand to the light and felt something warm bloom inside me. It was pride, a feeling I had not tasted in years. I told Daniel that for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. Not for being responsible, not for keeping peace, not for staying quiet, but for standing up, for protecting my own life, for choosing me. His arms wrapped around me from behind. He kissed the side of my head and whispered that this was only the beginning. We spent the next hour walking through the house, touching walls, opening cabinets, and imagining where everything would go. We talked about placing a small table near the windows so morning light could fall over breakfast. We talked about painting the living room a warm ivory shade. We talked about planting herbs in the garden. Every idea felt like a piece of a life I had finally earned the right to live. Later that night, after Daniel fell asleep on the couch with his jacket still on, I stepped out onto the balcony. The quiet Charleston street stretched out below me, lined with trees that swayed gently in the cool Carolina breeze. The houses on the block were still, their lights dimmed, their interiors holding families I would never know. But for the first time, the world did not feel distant. It felt open. I wrapped my hands around the railing and let the breeze touch my face. I thought about my mother and Brooke. I wondered whether they were still replaying the scene in their minds. I wondered whether they had felt embarrassment, anger, or confusion. But then a deeper truth settled over me. Their reactions no longer shaped my life. Their approval no longer fueled my choices. Their disappointment no longer chained me. I had not just walked away from their plans. I had walked toward something better. A life where my peace mattered. A life where I did not have to trade my happiness for their comfort. A life where giving did not mean losing pieces of who I was. Standing there on the balcony, I understood something important. Freedom does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes quietly at the end of a long day when the world finally grows still. Sometimes it feels like a soft breeze through an open window. Sometimes it feels like a new home in a new city. And sometimes it feels like the quiet strength in your own chest, reminding you that you finally chose yourself. The wedding gave me joy. The reveal gave me strength. But the decision to protect myself gave me my freedom. And freedom, I realized, was the sweetest gift I had ever received.